right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. I understand it is a little bit delayed, but I thank you guys for sticking around a little bit longer. I guarantee it's worth the wait. So I'm just going to go ahead and get us started. My name is Gianna Williams, and I'm an outreach specialist for the city of Dallas. As employees, we work on many different environmental topics every day. Each topic to help preserve Dallas's natural resources and to encourage everyone to practice beneficial environmental behaviors. Our Earth Day Everyday program is the result of the combined efforts of the Central Library and the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability, and it aims to highlight the many ways we can care for the planet throughout the year. This long-standing partnership between OEQS and the library has produced many informational programs that educate people on important environmental topics and how everything is connected. Take humans and coyotes. Our construction, litter, and other waste impacts their habitat. Coyote lifestyles impact us as well since they're important parts of our ecosystem. So how do we strengthen the often strained relationship between humans and coyotes? How did they get the nickname of song dogs? Well, stay tuned. Today we have three presenters with a vast knowledge of coyotes and years of experience educating others about them. Coyotes are highly resilient and social animals that can adapt to a wide range of environments, including the human-dominated landscapes of cities and suburbs. As keystone carnivores, they play an important role in maintaining healthy ecosystems and biodiversity. Learning to coexist with these ecologically valuable and adaptable wild neighbors is key to supporting the flourishing of our multi-species communities. This presentation will explore the challenges coyotes face in human-dominated landscapes and examine the seasonal behaviors that often lead to increased sightings. Additionally, we'll share practical tips on how to keep people and companion animals safe while dispelling some of the most common coyote myths. In conclusion, we'll discuss proactive methods that we can use to help minimize negative encounters and promote a responsible coexistence. Karin Saucedo is a Texas master naturalist with the Blackland Prairie chapter, a wildlife advocate, and a wildlife conservation photographer based in the Dallas area. She serves as the Texas State Coordinator for Project Coyote, leading education, outreach, and policy efforts to help Texans better understand and coexist with native carnivores, including coyotes, bobcats, and foxes. Through camera trapping, field work, and community outreach, Karin works to build stronger connections between people and the wild neighbors that share our landscapes. Joining Karin is her husband, Roberto Saucedo, a Texas master naturalist and co-founder of Song Dog Watch. With a background in marketing, animal rescue, and a passion for wildlife, Roberto focuses on community outreach and helping people better understand coyote behavior. Together, Karin and Roberto work with local communities and wildlife agencies to promote coexistence strategies across Texas. Finally, we have Dallas Animal Services' very own Jacqueline Sutherland. She has a varied career with years as a classically trained chef, a polo player and caretaker, right? And her current career of animal services officer, where she's been since 2011. While learning about the indigenous wildlife in the area, she became enamored with bats and has been rehabilitating the species found here in the Metroplex since 2013. And she has worked for the City of Dallas's Animal Services Department since 2018 and specializes in wildlife investigation, management, and coexistence. She currently runs the coyote management plan for the entire city of Dallas. I heard she was on a coyote call just this morning. She engages with the community in many facets, including multiple local and national media appearances. She continues to work directly with the citizens of Dallas by sharing insight and experience at HOA, city council, and neighborhood meetings, addressing the concerns and educating the public on our indigenous wildlife and peaceful coexistence. Okay, now I'm done talking. Here are the presenters. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I'm Karin Saucedo. This is Robert, my husband, and Jackie. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And just want to make sure you guys can hear me okay.
You need to get to it, please.
Use your outdoor voice.
Like you need to be.
Okay, sounds good. All right, is this any better?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's get started. We have a lot of material to, and thank you guys so much for your patience and your flexibility. So I'm going to fast forward through these because we did a great job of introductions. Project Coyote is a national nonprofit organization. Well, just gonna flip through these. Song Back Watch is a local organization. We help individual coyotes, individual animals. Gonna dive into the history of coyotes. So coyotes come from a line of canids that began right here in America, and they never left. That's one of the things that makes them unique about compared to wolves, jackals, and dingoes and other canids. Coyotes existed during the Pleistocene, and their bones have been found in the La Brea tar pits, along with dire wolves, saber-toothed cats. And the coyotes back then were a lot larger and robust, and they evolved to be a smaller generalist animal that preyed upon rabbits and rodents like the ones that we know today. Fast forward to the 1600s, Europeans brought their agricultural livestock and traditions with them when they came to America, and they adapted to the frontier environment to suit their needs. Versus the indigenous populations who are here, they followed the availability of the prey so that the area could heal itself. And at the time, predator control was managed sporadically by settlers. And then at the turn of the century, predator control officially became a federally funded program. The goal was to eliminate all wild carnivores, including mountain lions, bears, wolves. The goal was to reduce losses of sheep and cattle ranchers. And in Texas, Mexican gray wolves, red wolves, mountain lions were all perceived as a threat to livestock. And then as those wolves were eliminated, coyotes rapidly filled vacancy. Today, Texas coyotes can be found in every state except Hawaii and all the way down into Panama.
So as we know, the reason we're here is coyotes are everywhere, and it's largely due to the impact on the environment over the last century. And coyotes coyotes are all around us, and we can tell by seeing their paw prints in the mud, on the in the creek lines, etc. But if you look closely, and as Jackie has told us before, 95% of the time the coyote sees you before you see it, and sometimes you don't see it at all. So we can live amongst the coyotes and never really even know that they're there. So now they've become well established in every ecosystem, thriving in grasslands, swamps, deserts, tundra, forests, again, being urban adapters that they can live pretty much anywhere. So we believe that compassionate coexistence, or understanding their behaviors, is the best way forward.
I'm going to quickly touch on something very important. The seasonal milestones may be some of the reasons you may be seeing coyotes out during the day. But it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them, but hopefully this will help you understand why you're seeing them. So, and January through March is mating season. This is when their hormones are running pretty high, and mated pairs are pretty inseparable during this time. They're looking for den sites. They mate for life. Coyotes mate for life, and they form incredibly strong pair bonds. The mating peaks right around Valentine's Day. How appropriate. But during this time, they get pretty vocal and territorial. So they're constantly keeping outsider coyotes from coming in and breeding with the breeding age females. That's how they kind of control. We'll get more into that, but that's kind of how they control their populations. And this is an example. It's first from some researchers, but you'll see the red line and the yellow line. That's a male and a female's mated pair. They are literally inseparable during this time from March 1st through March 12th. So they are pretty much constantly together nonstop everywhere they go. And then March through May, mom stays in the den nursing for about 3 weeks. Pups are born in April or so, around April. So the rest of the family brings her food so she can stay with those pups and keep them warm and nurse them. If she leaves, she's not gone for very long, unless she feels threatened. So during this time, teenage coyotes can get into trouble because they're inexperienced and they have that lack of supervision. This is another example from some coyotes. That same pair, April 10th through April 13th, you can see the yellow is the female. So she has given birth. And the male is going in and giving her food or checking on her or whatever, but he kind of gives her some space to raise the pups. Speaking of pups, these are newborn pups in Dallas. And this is where they were born.
Oh.
So you might think it's in a wooded area.
So cute anymore, isn't it?
It is a backyard, so there's an open, this backyard was open, there's a open area where mom can come and go easily. She moved them shortly after this.
But as Jackie had told us about this particular incident is that that she did move them several times. So at any point, it's not, she stays there and stays there forever, but she feels danger, she moves them. She feels danger in the area. They have several den sites around the area where they will move them.
So April through June, the pups are really inquisitive and they begin to explore a little bit. But they're vulnerable to other predators. They're tiny, including larger dogs, potentially. So the family is still very protective at this time. It's also a time when pups can get displaced from their family. If mom is moving them, for example, she's going to move them one by one. And so she might, or if they're at an age where they're more ambulatory and they're following her, maybe they can't keep up. And so she's going through a shopping center or a neighborhood, some of those pups might get displaced. That's when we get a lot of calls. So this is an example of a mom who's still nursing, also in Dallas.
So this is right on the creek edge, and that's actually somebody's backyard. It's a tennis court. And she made her den right under the separation of the concrete from the creek area. So all her pups were under there, and as soon as she kind of whispers or squeals a little bit, they come running out and have their breakfast.
So July through September, families start using what we call rendezvous sites. And they're safe spots where the pups can stay while mom and dad go off and hunt. These areas are usually near open fields with brush or woods for cover so that they can lay out in the sun and loaf and then kind of run and hide if people come or dogs or other predators. So you might see, during this time, you might see several coyotes out together. And it looks like a huge family of coyotes, but it's really just a mom and dad and the pups, and then maybe the pups from last year that look like adults. So this is the time that we get a lot of calls about a lot of coyotes, but keep in mind they won't all survive. But this is a time where the most of family members are potentially going to be alive.
So we'll show you a better example, overview of a rendezvous site. But if you've seen this before, people will stop by and say, there's a bunch of coyotes over there. And this is a dad disciplining his babies. The babies themselves, this is where they learn pack structure, where they learn pair bonding, where they learn bonding. They learn how to hunt, they eat bugs, they eat rats, they play with each other. And this is basically when they're out of the den for the first time in a larger area. And again, they have the safety of the tree line if anybody steps into this area.
And in contrast, this is in a suburban neighborhood in a cul-de-sac. So there's a creek right behind these houses. This is in the middle of a cul-de-sac. And obviously this family has names. But this is the dad, and he just regurgitated food. That's why the pup is focused on the ground. He's finding food. And that's mom and the creek. She's responding to the siren. But because they didn't have a lot of space in this area, they're using this cul-de-sac as a rendezvous site. So September through January, forced dispersal can happen any time of the year if a parent or both parents are killed. But by the fall, most pups, some pups stay with their parents, and then others go off and find their own territory and mates. And this is a dispersing aged pup. Here she's 6 months old. And so she kind of starting to look like an adult coyote.
So just imagine your 6-month-old puppy being out in the wild by themselves. Again, not having the life experience, only having the experience of being with you. This is again, that's why they get themselves into trouble, because they're still trying to figure out who's friend, who's foe, is this safe, is this not safe? but they already look like fully grown, and that's usually what people are scared of, and they're probably just as scared of you as you are of them.
And to clarify, this is a pup that's in captivity. She's about to be released back into the wild, but she was rescued when she was a small pup. And then November through December, courtship. There's a lot of movement, a lot of activity going on during this time. The pups that are born in the spring look like adult coyotes by November, so you'll hear more vocalizations as pairs start forming and territories are defended.
So this is just an example of courting behavior of a male and a female. And again, because they are more active, people are seeing them more. They think it's a bunch of coyotes when they could be seeing the same pair or the same one over and over and over again. They do have their established territories, and unless they're dispersing, in this particular case, it's usually the same ones you're seeing time and time again.
So this is that full set. And now we're gonna dive into their ecological role. Coyotes are a keystone species, and their main job is to manage rodent populations. The absence or presence of this top predator can reshape an ecosystem. Without them, an area can be overrun by rodents, rabbits, or squirrels. But even in urban areas, everything is connected. One coyote can eat up to 1,800 rodents per year. Imagine what a family of 5 can eat. So they provide free rodent control, although pest control companies would rather you use their services, pay them for their services. Coyotes can help improve bird diversity and abundance. They keep urban mesocarnivore species that live on the edge of human dominated areas like skunks, squirrels, and foxes in check. And they scavenge on carrion. They're nature's cleanup crew.
That was a beaver, but that was actually a beaver, by the way, but it gives you an idea when people say the coyotes are, that saw a huge coyote, the beaver is actually bigger and weighs so much more than the coyote. That we think that was caught in a trap and they put it out for the coyotes, and the coyotes took advantage of it. And I just happened to be there when, you know, when they were chomping on it. Then they got tired of me being there and they dragged it into the tree line.
So they're nature's cleanup crew. They're omnivores, which means they eat meat and plants. So they'll eat just about anything: bugs, fruit, nuts, seeds, frogs, rodents, fish, just about anything your dog will eat. Because they eat meat and fruits, they also aid in seed dispersal. And you can see the persimmon seeds in this particular dropping. They love persimmon. They also help in disease transmission, control disease transmission. And now we're going to talk about the threats to coyotes. A coyote is killed every single minute in the US. And unfortunately, their main threats are humans or they're human related. And because of this, most coyotes die before the age of 3. So as cities grow rapidly, we're building neighborhoods right up against these remaining green spaces that are dense with people. And that increases the chances of us encountering wildlife, especially coyotes. Many residents don't know how to live alongside them, and most cities haven't invested in the education needed to help. So the Dallas-Fort Worth area is home to over 8 million people, and there are more than 5 million pets. So that's a lot of growth, and that kind of growth means more habitat loss and fragmentation, which reduces biodiversity and forces wildlife to adapt, and often in ways that increase the risk of conflict. So vehicle strikes, most young coyotes who are venturing out on their own in unfamiliar territory, and usually in the fall and winter, they fall victim to fast moving traffic. So please be mindful when you're driving at dawn and dusk, and keep in mind that wildlife is trying to use the roads. Humans, so we're predators of coyotes. We have wildlife killing contests that kill hundreds of coyotes.
It's time for a weekly closing.
Trappers for predator control, night hunting, and vigilantes in our own neighborhoods kill many coyotes. Project Coyote has been working for years to bring an end to wildlife killing contests. Though coyotes are a beneficial species, they're classified as a non-game species with no protection, which means they can be killed and hunted 365 days a year, day, night, no back limits, unfortunately. And just a plug for Project Coyote, if you'd like to get involved in the work that we do, you can scan this QR code and get in touch with us. So this is a very important slide. Something humans have in common with coyotes is that coyotes self-regulate their populations and will only produce as many coyotes as an area can support through resources like food, water, and shelter. Killing coyotes does not work as a control option in the long run, and it can create the opposite effect. A stable pack has only one breeding pair, and they mate for life. Removing a family of coyotes can create an undefended area where transient coyotes can move in. Transients fill the voids created when we kill resident coyotes from a stable pack. If a breeding female is killed, it could result in other younger, inexperienced females going into ovulation when they usually wouldn't. So coyotes respond to population decline by increasing their reproductive rates with larger litters, resulting in more coyotes. So basically, if you leave them alone and you let them live, this is what we want. The pack will remain stable, and those parents can grow and teach their young how to survive in a human-dominated area.
So example, Jackie was working this case, they asked us to put cameras up that the owner did, and she thought it was only 3 coyotes under the deck. They're saying, now remember, the goal here is the survival of the pack. And so you have 2 or 3 babies, and you know at least 1 or 2 are gonna make it, but if you have a threat to anybody in the pack, then they tend to have this. Here's another example that we were working on in the colony. This is actually 9 puppies that were under this deck. And what you didn't hear was a little whimper on the other side of the fence, and that was Big Brother coming around, whimpering, and then they came out so they could see him. So dogs off leash is probably another really big threat. In this case, this is Baby Queen. We had seen her in the Connemara. We'd been monitoring for years. We saw her since she was a puppy. This Rhodesian Ridgeback, you're not supposed to have dogs off leash anywhere in the city, but particularly in this park. He smelled where she marked. And a few weeks later, we got a call from the meadow manager saying that they had found a dead coyote. This is Baby Queen. We looked at our cameras and had seen her in the cameras, and then we had seen the Rhodesian Ridgeback off leash. And so while the kids that saw this, you know, were able to see a beautiful coyote, it's not as big as I thought, it's not as scary as I thought. It was really unfortunate again because we did see her since she was young, but this is one of the problems that people think that coyotes are a danger to dogs when a lot of times it's the other way around. So I want to go over some myths that people talk about, or that things that we believe about coyotes in general. That coyotes are a major danger to human, and honestly, if you do any Google searches, it will tell you that again, coyotes are naturally wary of people. Though over time they can unlearn that, because they're being fed or because they're not being taught that they're not supposed to be around people. And if that threat of people to them is not reinforced, they become quick learners and will take advantage of that situation. And so again, you won't see that there's a lot of, I don't know the exact statistic, but there's very few interactions, deadly interactions between coyotes against people. Coyotes are huge, vicious animals. In reality, coyotes in North America, again, they're between 25 and 35 pounds, which again is a mid-sized dog, the size of a mid-sized dog. They're generally lean, but they look bigger during the winter because of their fur. And they're generally shy and elusive, but they're loyal to their pack and they will defend their family. And so that's a lot of times when people get this idea that they're mean and they're vicious, when in reality, they just want to stay alive and they want you to leave them alone. If we push that. And then again, this is just sort of like to verify, this is a trail camera and they don't know we're catching this, but here comes the big scary coyote and he comes across a bobcat and no, sir. We all know that the bobcat is always going to win because they have the murder mittens. This is very rare that we get them on the same camera. They usually try to stay away from each other, but when they do come, look at how cautious that coyote is. Coyote can't afford to get a claw in the nose or the face because it affects their ability to eat, and the bobcat can climb a tree if it feels in danger. So coyotes know they kind of stay away from it. So they're not as bad as we think they are. So coyotes have, howling at dusk means that they're celebrating a kill. And Karen's gonna get into this, but in reality, we'll talk a little bit about, about what it means in this particular video in the next video.
So the coyote's scientific name is Canis latrans. It means barking dog. It's an ancient, their howling is an ancient language that's evolved since the Pleistocene. Their ability to create a variety of vocalizations makes a few sound like many. And they yip, they bark to defend territory, to locate family, to celebrate family, and to warn each other of danger and to greet one another. And we have a great video showing that in a second. But they can hear each other over 3 miles away. They don't have cell phones like we do, so that's how they communicate with each other. They're highly social and family means everything to them.
So here in this video, you hear them, and what you don't have is stereo, so you hear some over here and you hear some over here. The sun's going down, they've been by themselves the whole day, and right when the sun's going down, it's like, mom, the light's turning off and it's time for the kids to come in. So we'll go ahead and see the next video. And so this is a little bit of a long video. I think this is a longer version, but now when you really come down to it, this is actually kind of dark. There's a lot of light in here right now, but it's actually right at dusk. But here comes the entire family. They come together. They're happy to see each other. Pack dominance is being shown here. Submission, again, the pack structure, wagging tails, and they're all just happy to see each other. They get together, then they go off and run their territory for the rest of the night. So when you hear howling, this is essentially what you're seeing most of the time.
Hopefully you guys could hear that online. Okay, cuteness warning.
This is when they begin to learn what howling is.
Close your eyes, what does it sound like? Close your eyes, what does it sound like? There's a playground at an elementary school. Sounds like a bunch of 5-year-olds fighting over a big tennis ball.
So then here's another myth is that coyotes stalk people. In reality, coyotes are aware of everything in their territory. And when they're raising their families, they'll escort or shadow visitors traveling through the area to make sure that they leave the area. So a curious coyote may stop and watch visitors and determine if they're a threat to their family. This is often misinterpreted as being bold or brazen. Again, Jackie does a really good job of understanding and relaying this. Is a coyote will look at you and it's going to decide what you're going to do next. And you look at him and you say, that coyote was not afraid of me. There's something wrong with it. So this is just an example of escorting behavior. If you've ever seen this with a coyote, is standing there and barking at you, but not coming towards you. That means that it's trying to protect something or an area or a den or food or something. And that just means that like, you're not welcome here. So you just, walk away. And then the chupacabra myth, again, I grew up with that from Mexico. It's a vampire-like creature that attacks and drinks the blood of the livestock. And in reality, this is just a coyote that lost all its fur because it's suffering from mange, which is generally a result of rodenticide poisoning. So that rat poison has been linked to mange in wild carnivores that eat poison rodents, and whether it's the rodent dying or already dead, that poison that's in their system is not metabolized, so it's still in there and it's still active. And what it does is it weakens the immune system of a coyote, and that results in being attacked by mites that are constantly in their body. They can fight off, immune system goes down, they start to scratch, and then that cascading effect of open sores, of infections, of losing their fur. Then they go into neighborhoods because it's easier to find food there. It's in their natural area. People feel sorry for them. They start feeding them food, leftovers, food that's not healthy for them. And again, it's just a cascading effect. In situations with domestic animals, or the smaller the animal, the more impact that poison has. So you don't see the times that an owl has died or a hawk has died, or even a bobcat can get really sick and they're really hard to help at some point. They just there's a tipping point, but a coyote can live a long time with mange and suffer until it's too late. But the one thing is that it can be helped. In this particular case, this coyote was treated in the field with the appropriate medication, and within a couple of months, he was a lot better. Fur grew back, and he's been fine since then.
So now we want to go over some basic coexistence guidelines to help you and your community be coyote aware. So number one, never intentionally feed wildlife. Coyotes are never to see humans as a source of food, never, ever. Food is one of the biggest contributors to conflict with coyotes. It encourages an unnatural proximity tolerance to people. Number two, never unintentionally feed wildlife. They're opportunistic and they'll exploit any potential food source. They eat rodents, so anything that attracts rodents will also attract coyotes. And this coyote is eating persimmons here that have fallen to the ground. So unintentional feeding is more common and more dangerous than most people realize. It's one of the biggest causes of conflict. If there's one thing to remember from this talk, it's to remove anything that might attract wildlife in your yard, in your neighborhood. It's not just about the pet food that's left out for strays, but it's also well-meaning actions like tossing snacks at a coyote to distract him from a child or a stroller. Because that teaches the coyote to associate kids and strollers with food, and eventually it may approach playgrounds or families expecting food reward. Secure trash and compost, and don't let your bins overflow, especially during the holidays. We see a lot of trash overflowing, birthday parties, big events like the Super Bowl. Take the trash out, take your trash out the morning of pickup instead of the night before. And if you see overflowing bins like this in a public park, get in touch with your city to get those areas cleaned up, or your HOA if it's HOA owned. And for outdoor animals like chickens or rabbits, an investment in predator-proof enclosures can save their lives. Keep your grills cleaned. Residual food smells can also attract wildlife. And Dallas Animal Services has a great yard audit checklist. That is a real great resource. Let's see. So this was a Uber Eats delivery. Pick up your food deliveries right away. And to be fair, this coyote, the food had been sitting there a while because it went to the wrong address. And so finally the coyote got up the courage to approach it.
He knew what it was looking for. It wasn't the first time.
So this was the Dallas coyote that was involved in an incident that was in headlines back in 2022 in the Lake Highlands area. He learned that porches might mean food. So this is one of the many ways he became habituated to the neighborhood. That coyote approached a toddler on a front porch, and that toddler ended up in the hospital. And the entire family of coyotes ended up getting euthanized after that event. But guess what? They have more coyotes now. So other coyotes filled that vacancy. And actually that's why I'm here today, because that incident weighed heavily on me. It was my neighborhood where I grew up. And I felt like it could have been avoided with education, like programs like this.
I think the only good thing that came out of this, well, one of the good things that came out of this is that that's why we had Jackie. Jackie became dedicated to the coyote outreach effort through Dallas Animal Services because of that incident.
Her job changed that day.
So that's been really helpful to those of us that are trying to do this work with coyotes.
So don't let domestic animals roam freely. A wild animal doesn't discern them from prey, and this is also in the Lake Highlands area. Eliminate accessible water sources. They know where the water puddles up in the street. So discourage coyotes from entering your property. Use motion sensor lights or sprinklers to deter wildlife. Also clean up your shrubs, any sort of vegetation that's overgrown. Wild animals will definitely use that, so keep that tidy. And then don't panic if you see a coyote. A sighting of a coyote doesn't always require a response, especially if they're in their natural area. And never approach a sick or injured coyote, and never corner a coyote. Always provide an exit for him. Teach children about native wildlife, especially coyotes. Teach them how to respond to a coyote or even a loose dog nearby. And notify authorities if you encounter an aggressive coyote. And signs of aggression are snarling and lunging towards a person unprovoked. And unprovoked is the key word there. And respect, compassion, and education are excellent tools that nurture compassionate coexistence. So share what you've learned here with your friends and your family and your community. So we're going to talk a little bit about hazing. I'm going to invite Jackie to come and talk a little bit about hazing. But basically, when a coyote shows up in public areas where humans are, like a parking lot, your neighborhood, we need to make them feel uncomfortable, that they don't belong there. That's your territory, your home, that you're defending, so that they don't feel safe there. And the goal is to deter them, not harm them. So just standing there and taking pictures of a coyote and posting that on social media, that coyote hasn't learned anything. You may have taught your neighbors that you have coyotes, they may feel like you've got a lot of coyotes in the neighborhood, but the important thing is to teach that coyote a lesson. That coyote, are usually they're under a year old, and so they're still learning. So like dogs, their behavior can be modified. If we set the boundaries for them early, then we can prevent problems later. So some basic hazing techniques. I'll let Jackie kind of get into some of this if you want to come up and talk about.
Do I have my own slides?
You can. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so, no, I'm not doing my laundry. This is one of the objects that I use when I'm working coyote. On a regular basis, obviously throughout our landscape, I get a lot of coyotes that are starting to make random appearances in neighborhoods. Sometimes they get a little too comfortable. They start passing through during the day. It's my audio picking up, or do I have to pick kind of my? It should pick it up. It should pick it up. So one of the things that I do is I teach coyotes how to appropriately behave, and I teach other people how to teach coyotes to appropriately behave. And like I said, the most important aspect of that is hazing. There has to be some sort of reaction from us when the coyote is seen in order for them to associate or reassociate people with danger. When we don't have reactions, when we slow down, when we take pictures, when we stop what we're doing and we turn and walk the other way, we're actually teaching the coyote that their presence is welcomed and there's security in that space, and that's what's going to cause the behavior to continue. So the quicker that we start with behavior modification, the safer it is for the animal and the safer it is for the community itself. So usually what happens the first time they see us, a lot of times they'll stop and they acknowledge that they see a person. The vast majority of the time that a coyote sees us and they stop and do this, we don't see them at all. They could be traveling down an alley in the middle of the night and you're dragging your garbage down. And they stop and they're 3 houses down. It's dark, you don't see them. They stop what they're doing and they watch and wait. And then we put out our garbage while we're talking on our phone, and then we walk back up and we close the garage door. And so then they just continue on their way. So even when we do see them, they're still going to kind of repeat that idea of, I'm going to stop and wait and see, do I need to run away or can I just wait for this problem to pass? So that's kind of the acknowledge, or that actually goes into the evaluation part. Usually the first thing that I do is I start a conversation with the coyote. Hey, what are you doing? Let me talk to you for a minute. Anything like that. That actually communicates to the animal. It does see me. It's actually speaking towards me. It's providing energy in my direction. These are animals. They read body language. They understand, energy and intent. So now my intent and my energy is actually focused on that animal. So they realize, yes, I've been seen. A lot of the times, if they haven't had this type of conversation before, they'll give a little bit of distance and then they'll stop to reevaluate. It's not ideal, but that's just what our urban coyotes do, because they move a little bit away. A lot of the times when somebody will do something like that, hey, coyote, get out of here. And then they'll go 20 feet away and then the person will walk away and they can go back to doing what they were doing. So they're going to go and wait and see, do I need to go any further? And that's the reevaluation. And then when we actually haze, that's when they realize, okay, yeah, she means it. This is absolutely serious. I need to actually be completely gone from view at this point. And one of the things that I suggest to people that are having an increase in sightings in their neighborhoods, if they're walking natural trails and they're starting to see them pop up once in a while, carry an empty plastic bottle with rocks in it. You don't need any fancy hazing equipment, no fancy whistles, no fancy sprays, stun guns, that kind of stuff. Unless the animal's on top of you, those things are pretty much completely useless. And you better know how to get pepper spray out of your dog's face, because if you spray something, most likely it's going to get on you and it's going to get on your dog. This is all it takes. Is enough for them to give you at least 20 or 30 yards, not the 20 or 30 feet. Additionally, we throw it towards them. You can use it in your yard, you throw it at your back fence. The crashing noise that this makes is incredibly abrasive to them. It's not something they hear every day. They hear our voices all the time. They hear our cars all the time. They've grown accustomed to those noises. They don't care about those things. This type of thing really sets them on edge. And when we use it as a projectile, that's when we get a complete evasion from the area, and they will actually go far enough away where they'll disappear completely from view. Sometimes they'll return after this. If it's an animal that has been softly hazed or ignored for, a week or two, this is the first time this ever happened. You go to a restaurant, you have a bad experience. I'm going to go back and I'm going to give it one more try. Maybe that was just a one-time thing. Maybe it was the thought that gave me agita. So you go back. And so usually when I'm working with a coyote that's frequenting an area like this, I'll do my aggressive projectile haze and then I'll wait. And they will pop back someplace else. If they shoot between two side houses here, they'll go down to the end of the alley and they'll pop around the intersection, or they'll shoot this way and then they'll go one over, they'll double back and then they'll pop back out here. I still see you. Throw that again, and then they're gone. That's how they learn. Okay, this was for real. This is a problem. The territory's occupied. It's obviously defended. I need to rethink my strategy when I'm using this space to make sure that doesn't happen again. And that's when we get the shift back to nighttime activity. They're more evasive when they see people from a distance as opposed to waiting for somebody to do something like this. And when I teach the community as well to do the same thing, they learn that I'm not the only one they have to look for. We have neighborhoods in the city of Dallas where I'm the only one the coyote is afraid of because I'm the only one that will do this. And that is useless to the community because I don't live there. So like they said, the community itself is responsible for shaping the environment that's going to dictate how these animals live. It is very, very easy to communicate the wrong things, but it's also very, very easy to communicate the right things. So that's where that's our focus of our education.
That's it. Yeah. And actually, I'm going to show you in practice one of the things that Jackie actually said was you have to be loud, you have to be brash. And I think you've used the example that if your kid is being kidnapped by somebody in a white van, you need everybody in the area to know that that is happening. That's the way they need to know, because if you just yell at them, it sounds like you're yelling at your neighbor across the street, which is heard over and over. I've just heard you use that example, but check this out.
I love my bells.
Now, if you go back, like just watch the look on the lady's face when Jackie does this. She's like, Jesus H. But it has to be intense. They have to feel like you need to let them know this is my area. And the lady said the people over there actually reacted because that's exactly what you want. It has to be like out of the ordinary in order for that coyote to learn. And I think one of the great things about this example that Jackie does is with this looking at it from the side of the coyote is they do learn like dogs. You can train them, you can teach them. We talk about the things that we need to do to keep ourselves safe, but when you see it from the side of the coyote, it actually is a great experience for you to know that you can have that impact and make that change. Mm-hmm. And so
Yeah, so this is from Dallas Animal Services, a coyote hazing guide. They've got some great resources on their website. I think Jackie brought some flyers.
Yeah, I got all sorts of stuff here.
I've had it up to everybody.
Oh, you did?
Awesome.
Okay, cool.
yeah, we're just trying to make up some time, and just so you know, there's some very common sense things about keeping your pet safe, but also know that coyotes can climb fences, especially if you leave things in the area that they can climb. Some are better climbers than others, just like people. But one of the things that we do want to do is tell you a couple of stories about coyotes, so you can see some of this behavior actually come to life. And these are again with the shrinking habitat. This is situation. This is where me and Karin really got started. We saw coyote with mange in a place that we were doing prairie restoration. Then we felt sorry for this coyote. We were going to help it. We were going to get a treatment. We started doing a lot of studying, but we named her Alex. We didn't know if it was a male or female. We were going to do something about it. And across the creek, this is Rowlett Creek in Allen. Somebody said it always comes to this rock that's over here, and so we asked the owner, can we put some cameras out there because we want to see if we can find Alex and we want to try to help it. Well, we found out the reason that Alex was coming to the rock is this person was putting leftovers of food out every single day. So the very first day that this is actually gives you an idea. This is where we saw Alex the first time where we took the picture, and this is the house where the magic rock was. And so we put cameras out. The very first day we said, oh, there's Alex. And then we realized that there was one coyote with mange. And then all of a sudden there was a second coyote with mange. And then at the end of this, we actually saw the third coyote with mange jump up on the rock, and we realized that that was Alex. Again, we didn't know anything about coyotes at this point. We just knew that our task had got exponentially more difficult. And then one day we were out there, we would park about 100 feet away, maybe about 150 feet away. Sun's going down, you can barely see anything. Camera capture all of this. And we saw Alex come through the grass. But as I looked after I saw the video, I realized that Alex's ears were a lot bigger than I remember. And now looking at it, I said, oh my God, this is a yearling. This is actually a puppy. And you can see one of our cameras there. We're actually capturing this with our camera with a long lens. And this is actually Chloe, we named her, getting the medication. And this is the before and after. So after 3 months, she wasn't suffering. She didn't have a lot of like cuts or anything like that, but she did have the signs of mange. But this is the way she looked several months later. And this was the male in the first video that you saw that came into the camera the first time after he'd been medicated a couple of months later as well. And we followed this for 11 months. We learned so much about coyotes. Every time we were sitting out there in our car, Karin would read things about the history of coyotes and gestation periods and the seasonal milestones, et cetera. We learned a lot. But it took us 11 months to finally get her treated. We never saw her after this video. She got pushed out to the margins because the couple that you saw in the previous video that were doing the mating ritual replaced these coyotes. So again, once again, this is their territory in the Connemara Meadow Preserve, but look, guess what? This is now the way that it looks. So again, we're pushing into areas, and they just learn to live amongst us. And in a lot of cases, you can see a coyote here with a camera that we have, people walking, they don't even know they're there. And so we try to educate people around here about what to see, the signs, what you need to do. And a lot of people are very receptive, but again, this is going to continue to happen where we're just constantly up against each other. So this is a mating couple, or the new couple that came into the Connemara area. And this is just a different view of the mating ritual or the courting behavior you saw earlier. We knew they were different. We couldn't tell them apart because it's the night vision, but they didn't eat the food that was on the rock. So they weren't interested in that. They were interested in the territory. So this is Natasha and this is Boris. They were the ones that were on the beaver kill. Beautiful, beautiful animals. They were more elusive. The others, we would see them all the time during the day when we were in the meadow, in the meadow, but these two were very elusive. They stayed out of the way. We only saw them on our cameras. So this is Boris. Far away, you can hear Natasha calling her. And just as a little 2%er, this is actually the logo. Our logo is actually him. We used him to create our logo for Song Dog Watch. And so one thing that's when you see a bunch of coyotes right before puppies are born or during puppy season, a lot of times it's actually the family right before the puppies drop. So in the front is Boris. This is Fat Belly coming up behind. Again, this front sprinty 1-year-old. And then there's Fat Belly coming up, Itchy coming up from the side. The mom is pregnant. So this is the day before she had puppies. And then this is White Tip. Now, she's pregnant there with one of the puppies is actually the one that was killed by the Rhodesian Ridgeback. So one of these puppies here that you see in this video is Baby Queen. So now if you look at this, this is May 22nd at 4:46. This is May 22nd at 9:23. So a few hours later in the same area, different angle because we had 3 cameras on here. There's only 3 puppies. In the previous video, there was 4. We never saw the 4th one again. So it could have been taken by an owl, a raccoon. It could have fallen into something. So again, it is very dangerous for them at this point. They're only a couple of pounds. And then something that also is really unique is here's a young one for a yearling. He sticks around and he's actually babysitting the puppies. Yeah, so you do have the family comes together, and sometimes it's just mom and dad, and then sometimes one sticks around and helps with the puppy. So here comes the second puppy from behind. So now this is 2021. This is Natasha. She's digging the den for the next year's pups. You see her tail isn't as furry as it was in the first picture where you saw she was young and beautiful. And now this is her the day before she gave birth to pups. We never saw these pups, so we don't know what happened. And then coming up very slowly from behind is now old man Boris. So Boris is up to the left there. This is the new breeding pair. It's one of his sons and a female that came in when she was dispersing. And I'll let you see that again. You see just like, you know, the OG taking his time, teaching them what they need to do. So again, it is stuff that's passed down. And when you kill that, then you just really have this gap. And again, you can want to put it to anything else like elephants, where the matriarchs or the elders teach the young ones how to stay alive, but how to stay out of trouble. And then we hadn't seen, shortly after that, we hadn't seen her anymore. We had heard there was a coyote with mange in the neighborhoods. We could never find her after that. And here you have Boris calling out and there's no response. But, you know, the Coyotes of Connemara continue. Again, this is March 29. This is the new breeding pair. And as they say, the cycle continues. And then just one other, quick story. This is the coyote that had mange that we showed you the before and after. We were called out for that, and we ended up following this pack for the next 5 years. We still have cameras in the tree line, and they're still coming around. So this is what we're called for. We named him Tony Hawk because there's a skate park in this area, and this is Mindy, his partner. And one of the things we noticed is that normally mom takes care of the pups. In this one, we noticed that dad was always like had an outsized role in raising the pups. And then you'll see here, like we're really close to houses. And one of the things that I love about this neighborhood is that all these people know that these coyotes are there. They're not flustered by them. But to give you an idea, this is a library on the right-hand side. This tree line that you see here, that tree line is where they were kind of protected. The houses that you see in the back, there's a baseball fields and a skate park on the right-hand side. And even though you have coyotes here and you think, wow, that's really dangerous for them, to be honest with you, that's a great place to learn how to hunt, how to build pack structure. If there's any threat, they run into the tree line. There's greenbrier, again, to keep them safe. So this is kind of where they learn to grow, to again, establish their pack structure. And then dad really, again, does play an outsized role in this. And this is one, again, we didn't know what we were looking at. Karin showed you an example of the regurgitation. That's one of the way they feed the young ones after they come off of milk. In this case, when we saw this, it's like, oh, they're really happy to see him. Although I had seen them in the frame, all of a sudden the babies go to dad and they're like super excited to see him. And I just didn't get it until there's one point here where he is trying to find a place to regurgitate. And as soon as he regurgitates, then the pups really just focus on that one area where they begin to eat partially digested food. But he's empty. He doesn't want any more. He kind of lets them know there's no more in the tank. And so he was a disciplinarian. He kind of kept his pups in line. This looks very vicious, but in reality, it's just a very quick frame of a series of frames where he's loving on them. And at some point, the pup did something he didn't like, and he just kind of told him, you can't do that. But look at the canines, pretty interesting, long canines. And then this is also how we start telling them apart. This is the two of the female pups. There were 3 females. And this is dad kind of saying hi. And then the one on the left, that's Blondie. She was always super submissive. She was always tails between them. They picked on her. And so we don't know. And when they survive, is it the shy ones that die because they don't eat or they get taken down by a dog, off-leash dog? Or is it the ones that are really bold and brave and they go up to people and eventually that's why animal control has to be called in because they're too brave? Is it the ones that are just You know, they're brave enough to do what they need to do, but they're also they're smart enough to stay back. Those are things that we're still trying to learn and study. But look at this. This is a 5-month-old puppy, but it looks like a full-grown coyote. So at some point, this one went across the street. El Dorado, which is 4-lane road, is really busy. And Karin was like, she needs to go back home. She needs to go back to the field, because we know that they're young and they're impressionable. They're dumb. They don't know their way. But you know, again, this is this is the reality. So this is very interesting. So look at his rear left leg. Broken. Look at that. So look at the day 2, June 20th, puppy season. And as an animal rescue, you think like, what do? We need to take him out. But he's got pups. And if we take him out, the pups may die. So you leave them because, again, your first instinct as a rescuer is to try to do something about it, you know, but we couldn't do that. Here's just another example. Look how dangly that leg is. But then almost exactly a year later, that's him. Still lives on it, still has some issues with it, but it healed. They're incredibly resilient. I just wanted to show that example because immediately if somebody says, oh, this coyote's limping, when they limp, usually they were nipped by another coyote that's trying to get them out of their area. They stepped on greenbrier, they cut their paw. It doesn't automatically mean that they need to be taken out. It just means that they need to be observed. If they're in a ball and you can walk up to them, that's a different situation, but generally they try to get away from people. So kind of in wrapping up, just kind of reminding you that we know the coyotes are everywhere. They're active all year round. Now, you know, the 6 times a year you can possibly see them outside. There's things that we can do to keep ourselves and our companion animals safe. And again, the more that you know, the more that you can share with friends, not fear them as much as you probably did. And then also, if there's any experiences that you've had or anything from this presentation that you think we could make better, or that you've seen, please take our information and let us know, because we do want to keep improving this. If you've had experiences, they don't always have to be good experiences, but definitely experiences that we can add to our learning so that we can make this better. But at this point, that's us. If you have anybody have any questions?
I have one on Zoom.
Yes.
Joanna is asked, I've heard coyotes trick their prey, such as dogs, into being friendly to lure them to their pack where they are then surrounded. Is this a known behavior of coyotes?
That is actually one of the myths. I'll let Karin address it, but that is one of the myths that wasn't exactly covered here, but it goes along with the howling to about their prey.
Yeah, so they don't lure other animals to their pack waiting to kill it. We hear that is a myth, or we hear that all the time. But what they usually will escort, though there's usually a coyote that's going to be very, you know, he's going to be out in the open. He's going to see you or your dog, and they're going to shadow you. They're going to shadow you until you go away. So the idea is for you to leave the area where they're trying to protect, whether it's food or whether it's their pups. They'll shadow you. Robert went over this a little bit, but they're going to do what they need to do to defend their territory. So if you respond by letting your dog off leash to attack that coyote intentionally, of course, that coyote is going to defend its pups and its family.
Now, one of the things that I'll let Jackie also add, because she has more experience in that particular situation, if there's a dog and you have the dog off leash, and this happens a lot, people will say, they attracted my dog. In reality, you shouldn't have had your dog off leash, first of all. Second, the dog all of a sudden chases it, and it chases it into an area where the other coyotes are there, and they're going to defend their territory, defend each other. People will see that kind of that way. And I don't know, Jackie, if you want to add to any of that from your experience.
You know, I've heard that type of that it is a very common myth, and obviously one of the most important things about it, it's impossible to lure a dog anywhere when it's on a leash with its owner. Most of the encounters that we've had with dogs that get into altercations with coyote, the dog actually pursued the coyote, and the coyote either defended itself or it ran back to the safety of its family. I mean, coyotes don't lure any, you know, they can't lure rabbits, they can't lure squirrels to follow them. If there's anything involving any sort of predation, they sneak up on it and they grab it. The vast majority of the times where we have coyotes that do have encounters with dogs, even if it ends up, unfortunately, with the death of the dog, we're generally talking about something small and fluffy, a Maltipoo, a miniature Yorkie. If it looks like a rabbit, they're gonna think they can grab it. It's an animal that was off leash, maybe in an open front yard, in a field area. The owner was either not present at all, or they were 30 feet away sitting on the porch having a cigarette. And generally, the body is found 2 houses down the next morning. Once they realize they've killed a dog and not a rabbit, they leave it behind. They do not eat dog. It's just, it's not on their menu, so it would be considered accidental. And when those types of things happen and a person is present, even if they're 30 yards away, the minute the person goes, the coyote drops the dog and takes off running because they realize, oh God, there's a person here, that wasn't a rabbit. Oh my God, this is really bad. So it's all about being responsible with your pets and being observant of your surroundings, and those types of things just don't happen.
And if I could just add one more thing, we said before that their job is to manage the ecosystem. And again, and as Jackie said before, when you let your cat out and you close the door on them, they become a part of the ecosystem, and a coyote does not discern between a pet or a wild animal. Their job is to make sure that the area is clean, and they will take it out. And sometimes they'll kill a cat. They may eat it, or they may just kill it because cats and bobcats are competition to them. Any other questions? Yes.
The slide that you showed about leaving them in the space and they manage their own population.
Yes.
I was just curious about then the darling images you showed of the larger litters. What was the cause of those large litters?
Well, we don't know exactly, but Jackie can probably talk to the ones that were on the deck. Immediately, what we start to do is we start to find out if there was a mated pair that was there, that one of them is missing, or one of them was taken out. In that particular case, it was like Frankfurt, the tollway, like it was
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, the little potato puppies, or the ones that were
No,
running
the
on?
8 or 9.
8 or 9, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. A lot of the time, it depends on the size of the territory, depends on what was in there previously. The first activity that I got when I was monitoring that case was a single that was by himself. And that was in the fall. And then the next spring is when those pups popped up. We hadn't had a lot of other activity in that area. Of the 8 pups that were under there, I mean, I have a video of me working with them when they were probably 3 or 4 months old in the field, and there was only 4 of them. So, less than half the litter makes it to 6 months old. And the territory goes underneath the Dallas North Tollway. It goes underneath the George Bush Expressway up into near Plano, and that bottom to Carrollton there. And there's a golf course there. I mean, there's a huge green space that runs through. So without putting GPS collars on, I can't know the size of the territory. But most likely, and I've also noticed that I think the territory, the numbers fluctuate a bit more the closer we are to major expressways and highways, because we get more hit by cars. It's harder for them to learn the traffic patterns. We have coyotes that will stop at a crosswalk and wait for the light to turn. We've got footage of that from Chicago. They learn traffic patterns. So, yeah, when we're talking about the expressway and that kind of stuff, it's harder for them to learn. So we lose more coyotes in those spaces. So then the litters just reproduce.
How many do you estimate are in that Frankfurt area?
Now, I don't get a lot of reports from them anymore. Actually, they got. I don't get a lot of reports from the people that are in the main vicinity of where I know they are, because I have told those people they need to stop letting their dogs run loose in the woods. And they don't want me coming out anymore because I will enforce our at-large ordinances. So they've decided that the way around that is they're just not going to report coyote activity anymore. So I don't have accurate information on that. The good thing is family's always been really well behaved. It's not huge. Probably this year, we're probably looking at, maybe 5 total. So, they're pretty stable at this point and well behaved, which is important.
West, and
I've
only seen one in the last year.
Yeah, and that's a family. I actually call them the country family. The people in Bantry North are the ones that see them the most often because of the Frankfurt Preservation Area and the creek system that runs through there. And they're the ones that like to use that exact same space as off-leash park. So they don't report anymore. So I have no idea what's going on. But you guys, you haven't had activity in there in a long time.
Yeah.
I've got great footage of coyotes in there from when I started working this family. That was that family. I'm not gonna lie to you. That was the country.
I mean, I know mine.
And it was somebody's backyard. Yeah, it was somebody's backyard.
And the McKinney family that we showed you, on average, it would have 4 puppies, and then one time they ended up with 3, and there's been other times where we've seen that none of them made it, but that didn't mean they were gonna have more the next year. That just meant that they didn't have a successful litter, they drowned, they didn't make it or whatever. The next year they would have 3 or 4. As long as that mated pair was okay, we've just seen a consistent amount of pups every year. Any other questions?
The sighting that I know about is at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, right in back of the zoo area. There's been a lot of sightings of coyotes. And one of them is a white coyote.
Yeah, I have yet to see a photograph of that. I've asked multiple people for a photograph of that, and nobody's been able to take a photograph. If there's is there an actual travel corridor that they're using on a regular basis?
Oh, they trees.
Well, I mean
don't know
like
that's-
specifically, specifically at the zoo. The last time I worked
Yeah, there's
at the
a
zoo,
wetland
it
behind
was
there.
actually, it was a predatory event that was inside the zoo, and it turned out to be fox. The vast majority of the time, any irregularly colored coyote report that's come in, I'm able to confirm it's a dog. It could be a dog that's running with coyotes.
Yeah.
It is very rare for coyotes to experience either albinoism or leucism. And I would love to document that here. The last person I spoke to, when I asked her to start getting some information and, see if anybody had pictures because I'll set up game cameras and I'll get it on camera myself if I have to. It's just a matter of getting reports of where they're being seen. So that way I can actually come out and set up my equipment, but I haven't gotten a report about that in over a month.
One other thing to also know is when you say at 5 o'clock, whenever we get called out somewhere and somebody says they come by here every day at 4 o'clock, that means somebody's feeding them. Generally, when they're on a schedule, that just means that somebody is doing something in the neighborhood they shouldn't be doing, because if there's nothing for them to get from one place to the other, there's no reason for them to be there. That's usually what we find out. First thing we look at is a green space, a corridor, and then once you start going in, then you start seeing. There was one case where he said, well, somebody's feeding it, and we found that there was 5 people that were feeding in different areas. Oh yeah, that lady over there feeds him, and that lady feeds him. And we had a coyote that wouldn't leave an area because he was being fed in an apartment complex by several people. But they had great rat boxes everywhere because they're leaving food out, and it was attracting the rats, and it attracted coyote, and they were getting coyote food.
But
Yes, it was
that's
like a circle.
he's gonna come and get his dinner.
Yes, yes.
Or his breakfast.
Exactly.
It's meal time, yeah. So close to my neighborhood, they have started building, I don't know what. And I knew for a fact that coyotes lived in the area where they're building. And it kind of just made me very sad because I'm like, well, where are they gonna go? Obviously, they're gonna go into the neighborhoods that surround that area. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, is there anything that I can do as a citizen, as just somebody who cares, to like put that on the radar of my city? Like, when y'all are developing, you need to think outside of just. I know they don't. I know they don't.
You're
but-
so sweet.
Yeah, they can make the developer do a wildlife management plan, but
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know.
And
The
that
vast
means that
majority
they
of
would
wildlife
interact the
management
larger ones
plan
and
means
Yeah.
removing all the wildlife, so we don't
the
have to
big,
worry
the
about
larger
it.
ones.
I will say what's really helpful is this presentation, so people know what happens is when people say, well, we're in their area, but in reality, if we didn't do anything to keep them there, they would just move further out. They would move further out. But then we start planting things that attract bunnies. We have trash that attract rats. We have trees that attract squirrels, and that's their wheelhouse. And so unless we do anything to keep them away, they're going to stay in those areas because we're now not only taking their spot, but we're also creating the conditions for them to stay.
Yeah.
For this, I would recommend sharing a yard audit checklist, just sharing materials with your community so that they can be coyote aware. But that yard audit checklist is really important because those coyotes are adaptable, so they're gonna adapt. You've seen them,
Yeah.
when houses or trees or forest areas are clear cut, and that was where they were venting that year. And the houses went up, so they're extremely adaptable, but like Robert said, if they don't find anything, if they food in the area, they're gonna move on, and they're gonna just not pay any attention. They'll still patrol their area.
Yeah.
So you'll still see them on the ring camera, but if you see them hanging out in people's front yards during the day, that's a problem.
Right, because usually I've only ever seen the coyotes when I'm driving, so like they'll be crossing the street from the field to the neighborhood, or they're like on their way from one like tree area to another tree area.
Yeah.
But that's the only time I've ever seen them, but I'm like, I know that they're here, so when I saw them break ground, and I'm like, oh God, like they're gonna be all in the neighborhoods, and because usually they weren't in the neighborhoods.
Well, you never saw them.
When I saw them, they weren't.
So here's another important question I have. She sees them running in the city of Dallas.
Like,
I see it over Lancaster. I see them further out as DeSoto. One night I was coming home and two were crossing together and in sequence, like the way they were running, both of their
Oh, nice.
paws were
Yeah.
go, they look so cute. And they crossed the busy street and they took off like to the field area.
Yeah.
But they were together in sequence, running together, and actually one would look at each other and they were like talking, because I was looking at them from the stoplight, so I saw them running and they were together, and it was really harmonizing because they both ran together and then they went into the wooded area.
Yeah, depending on the time of year, it could have been a mated pair. That, I showed that slide where they're just inseparable during that time of year in particular. Could have been siblings, learning from each other and just kind of exploring off together.
I have one experience where I saw coyote and I was looking at it and it was going this way and I was looking and looking and looking. I have since learned that when you see one coyote, there's a good chance that there's another one, behind it or in front of it. And so they do run in pairs a lot when they're running their territory. So if you see one, a lot of times there may be a second one.
That's the other sighting I saw, just like her, she's saying that they're, building new little communities.
Yeah.
So in the mornings, at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, they're just running by themselves to an open field where you can just see them out.
Yeah.
And they run into, I don't know where they go. They are.
Now, our presentation is really gears more towards suburban and urban coyote behavior. Their territory is a lot smaller. They get used to working in certain areas. When you start getting to Little Elm and Prosper and places where they're building out, those rural coyotes are becoming urban or suburban, and what they're seeing is the opportunity for food is different in both areas. And so they're going to come in to see what they can take advantage of. Construction workers leave food behind, so they kind of learn, that. But again, as Karin was saying, they're scavengers. They'll eat food, they'll eat nuts, they'll eat trash, they'll eat dead animals. Yeah.
I love French fries. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So in terms of what you guys do, all three of you, as outreach and stuff, I know you're kind of relegated to Dallas, but do you guys talk to local governments and like educate what does that look like?
So with my position with Project Coyote, I'm the state representative, so I go all around the state. I've been kind of focusing on the Houston area. We're trying to get some more funding, some more volunteers. So we can, we have a volunteer in the El Paso area. And so yeah, we're recruiting right now, but I go all over. Song Dog Watch, we will help anybody, but we don't necessarily travel, we will, but really kind of we'll help anybody and via phone call but most of our cases are local. We help kind of what Jackie does, but not to that extent.
Yeah, well, there's
Yeah.
two things there. One is the hands-on. The other thing is that she has the law and mandate behind her. So like, if we see dogs off leash all the time, we can just make suggestions, say you're not supposed to do that. And she actually has power to do that. And the second thing is that when you look at the different municipalities, Dallas has invested time, money, and resources to address the situation. In the city of Frisco, the animal control is under the guise of the police department, and so is Allen Animal Control. So they don't want us to get involved in that because it goes through the police department. Places like the Colony have called us out, Louisville, Carrollton, even though Carrollton Parks and Rec really liked us and we're always at events, animal control doesn't like for us to do it. So we're on the border of Louisville and Carrollton. Coyotes that go back and forth, we can do things in Louisville, but we can't do things in Carrollton.
Oh, wow.
So it's just each municipality is going to be different, but we do reach out to all of them.
And one of the great things about having a relationship with Jackie and other animal control officers is we can connect the dots. So when we got a phone call about a coyote mother after a really huge rainstorm event, she was carrying her pups one by one in Carrollton towards the Dallas area. Next thing we know, those Dallas puppies in that video show up. So it was the same mother, it's the same area. And so we kind of connected the dots. The Carrollton sightings had died down, and then all of a sudden there were sightings in Dallas. So it's kind of been on the edge of both territories. So we do work with it, because we get calls from all over. We try to have close relationships with those animal control officers who are also getting those same calls, so we can share information and help.
To the degree that you were saying right now about feeling not being able to do anything, we did do a talk at a STEAM school in Plano. So the school districts are different because there's, don't tell my kids what to believe or whatever. And everybody wants us to teach the kids. As soon as it gets into superintendent and super whatever, then they nix it. Then they talk to the PTA. PTA is always really political. But the STEAM center, we went to a STEAM center, and when we gave our presentation, the students said, they're doing civil engineering, and we never thought about wildlife corridors. And we're going to start talking about having wildlife corridors and building wildlife spaces. And then education, because it's one thing to have it and say, you're going to be next to wildlife. Yeah, but I don't want it in my yard. It's like, well, you don't have a choice. Wildlife is wildlife. And they were trying to figure out how they could incorporate that into the way that they're doing their civil engineering courses.
Speaking of education, Project Coyote has a youth education program called Keeping It Wild. It's curriculum for teachers, and actually I'll be at the DIST open house on the 18th, sharing that information. So we're working directly with teachers and getting it's a TEACS aligned 3 curriculums.
Will you actually be speaking or tabling?
Tabling.
Oh,
Yeah.
too bad you're not gonna be speaking. I need to learn all that.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
As a volunteer, because you're reposting volunteers, what would be the job duties as a volunteer?
Project Coyote, really it's based on your strengths, it's based on your interests. We have kind of 3 different areas. We have our Inspire is where we work with artists, we work with photographers, we show movies, film premieres, things like that. And then also our education program for kids. So if you're more drawn to kids and education, we can focus on getting our materials out there in the hands of teachers and school districts. And then also we have Protect, which is more policy. We're not doing a lot of policy in Texas right now. We're definitely focused on coexistence, and education right now. But policy, some of the things that we're trying to create a rodenticide awareness campaign so that we can potentially get some local resolutions in place to remove certain rodenticides or anticoagulant rodenticides from the environment and either a city or an HOA, anything. So whatever your interest is, and also the coexist tabling, doing talks like this today.
But hopefully you're walking away less intimidated by coyotes, but also more empowered and to kind of the more the easier it is to understand why are they here rather than they're coming to get my dog. It's like, we need to get them out of here. And again, I've heard Jackie say before that the way that you keep them safe is to keep them where they're supposed to be. And you do that by, behavior modification, by telling your neighbors. We did that with a lady who said there's coyotes that keep coming to my property in Keller. And they keep going to this guy because this guy's feeding them. It's like, keep them off your yard. At the very least, you keep them off your yard. And they kind of go and they go around because that's the crazy lady. I'm going to go around here. They still go where they're going, but they stay off of her property because she taught them. Now, imagine if all of the neighbors did that, then the coyotes wouldn't be there. They would be in the tree line where they're supposed to be.
Right.
Yes.
70% of this I didn't know today. I thought I knew something about it, but I just want to thank the 3 of you because it was so helpful. So very, and I feel very much more empowered Cause I do see them in my neighborhood and now I understand, feel like I understand them.
We'll make a
A lot
bottle.
more, yeah.
Yes.
And I'm gonna make my bottle.
You don't even,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, when you sleep, you don't even need a bottle. I've
Oh, really?
gotten out of the van and just like, you wanna buy some Girl Scout cookies? Let me put you. And I mean, they're just,
They're gone.
yeah, because it's like, it sees me, this is nuts.
Yeah, cause they come
I need to
dancing to the
go.
neighborhood all hours of the night.
Yeah.
That lady in Keller, I mean, I did not know like the behavior side of it. And she called it, she's like, he's here right now, what do I do? And I said, well, what?
Oh,
And
Jackie.
she FaceTime, no, it was this lady, the lady in Keller. And she did this, and she's like shaking, and she's like, he's right there. And then I said, walk up to it, and then she said, it laid down. She's the closer I got to it, it laid down. I said, all it's doing is trying to figure out if it's gonna go left, right, or back. I said, just keep walking towards it and make a lot of noise. And she said, sure enough, she goes, I'm just scared because I'm like 10 feet away from it. As soon as she got a couple of feet, then it took off to keep yelling at him, keep yelling at him. And again, if we couldn't walk her through that, she would get a gun and shoot it, or she would never come out because she's afraid of the coyote. And the coyote's just like, this has never happened before.
Right.
What am I doing? What are you doing? And it's a standoff until he realizes, okay, I shouldn't be here. I gotta go.
And then also to wait, and if it tries to come back.
Yeah.
I think
Hey,
that's-
It's still here for
Wait.
cookies.
Yeah, that's the one thing,
Yeah.
that's the one thing that I didn't think about. And again,
Yeah.
as a photographer, they always say if a coyote or bobcat goes, keep taking pictures because at some point they always turn around. And I never connected the
They always
dots.
turn around.
I never connected the dots. And all the pictures that you see of coyotes that are like this, that means that they ran and they turned around and people kept taking pictures. Now, if you think about it, it is making that evaluation. Is this dangerous? Is this not dangerous? Can it see me? I didn't realize it could see me because normally you don't see me, and it's waiting for you to make the next move.
Yeah, I didn't know until she explained it. That's what it's doing. Oh, can I come on back or?
Now Jackie is there for that job, and for us, it's like it went away. I'm gonna go back into my house.
Yeah.
Or that's a different one. No, it's the same one that you're seeing over and over. And since she's sitting there waiting for it to come back, then she does that. And I didn't know that, which I learned too when I saw that.
Yeah, but our main goal is we want to replace that fear with understanding.
Yeah.
You don't have to
That's-
love coyotes, you don't have to like them, just understand
Yeah.
what you're seeing and how to tell what's false on the internet as well. We're the experts, next door is not experts
Ah, no.
necessarily.
So we got rid of a lot of the myths that we've heard. of Coyotes. So we had a incident at the ranch, the night before we had bought turkeys. And then we're gonna bake them, right, or do whatever, fry them or whatever, so we bought about 10 turkeys. Well, there was only 9 turkeys, so a coyote went and grabbed one of the whole bag and took the whole turkey. And then we found it like a mile away down the road because of the Walmart bag.
Oh, gosh.
But he didn't eat, he just like scratched it around, carried it about a mile away.
How do you know it was a coyote? Do you have it on camera?
No, they don't know if it was a coyote.
That's the
They
thing,
can say
you don't
it was
know
a
what it
coyote
was.
or bobcat, like
Yeah,
I said.
and I mean, honestly, a 19-pound turkey, that's not getting carried away by either one of those animals easily.
Too heavy.
It was
I
heavy.
have
That's
trouble.
what we're like,
Yeah.
what took
Our
it.
coyotes
So
are
that was our
like
mystery,
35 pounds,
Our
yeah.
Thanksgiving mystery.
So, yeah, it would
It's
be
probably-
curious to see what took it down.
Oh, what? A cougar.
It was the neighbors.
Was that cool?
Water.
It was probably somebody who's Great Pyrenees.
Yeah, it was
Most
Great Pyrenees
likely
that
was.
came and got it. That's what I was thinking. That was a big statement dog. They
Yeah.
came and got it.
Any other questions? Free turkey.
They
Yeah.
had a dog.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for joining us.
Great information.
Charging the whole time.